gastric bypasses and gastric bands, we wanted to talk about this as it is an option for weight loss, and we have been working in clinical practice for over a decade, and so we have seen clients go through this as an experience, and it is pretty barbaric.
Yeah, barbaric. It's not bariatric, it's barbaric.
That's it, exactly.
So gastric bands, gastric bypasses and gastric sleeves, they are three separate things, but they basically do the same thing, which is to stop food sitting in the stomach for too long, which, when you understand the physiology of the stomach, is actually crazy. It's crazy. So a gastric bypass is when the top part of your stomach is joined to the smaller intestine, so you are allegedly feel full sooner and don't absorb as many calories from food. A gastric band, a band is placed around your stomach, literally like an elastic band, designed to stay in for life. They are incredibly barbaric. A dear friend of mine went through gastric band surgery. It has been the most traumatizing thing she's ever experienced. They say, you can see on that diagram, it talks about an underskin access port. That means that there is literally like a lump of Lego sitting underneath your ribs that they then come up with a giant needle and try and stab to just hit that little bit of rubber where they can then put the saline in. It is incredibly traumatizing. And most people who go through it say they had no clue what it was actually going to be like when they were told about it. They say, oh, there's this little port and then we're going to inject it with saline. You go, oh, okay, that sounds fine. It's not fine. As Laura's put at the bottom there, the band can occasionally slip. And when they do, it's life affecting. That's not just an, oh, it slipped. So quite a lot of people, when they have the gastric band, you can see it's like restricting. If you're eating food, no matter how much you mush up that food, it literally hits on top of this band. So very often it doesn't go through the band. People are having to go and vomit up their food. There is a huge amount of malnourishment from gastric band surgery, from gastric bypass surgery. And in fact, someone I know who actually runs a Slimming, well, I know her through her actually, it's her neighbour, weirdly. She runs a Slimming World franchise. She said that most of the women in her Slimming World have had gastric bypass or gastric band surgery, and it hasn't worked. And now they're still trying to lose weight, but they've been through this life-affecting surgery. So there is alleged science. This is one of the places where I get pretty cross with the mainstream medical opinion.
We've had a question about what's the criteria for someone having a gastric band. You need to have a body mass index of 40 or more. You've tried all other weight loss methods, but you have struggled to lose the weight. You agree to long-term follow-up after surgery. You're fit and healthy in other areas, and you've been receiving or will receive treatment from the obesity team.
Yeah, and that's all pretty vague, to be honest. Someone's asked if you can have a gastric band reversed. They don't like to on the NHS. This particular friend of mine, the reason we know about them slipping is because it has actually slipped for her, and she is currently in a state where she cannot eat, and she's now been experiencing that for 8 months, and she's had to petition to have her gastric band removed. So it's very, very hard to get them removed on the NHS.
And I think
they can, but it's also very dangerous because you're now cutting around the stomach. If you think about the stomach, it's like a balloon filled with acid. Very dangerous surgery.
And this surgery doesn't take into account hormones, digestive health, why someone is piling on weight in the first place. It's such a simple view of someone must be piling on weight because they cannot control how much they eat. And
it must be the stomach that's doing that.
Be the stomach's fault. So we're gonna strap up the stomach and stop the stomach working. And when we start to go deeper into digestive health, part of the reason that we pile on health is if we have poor digestive health and we're not able to take the nutrition from our food.
Exactly.
So this kind of surgery is actually inhibiting digestion, which has a huge knock-on effect with other areas of your health. Like I said at the beginning of this talk, Claire and I came into this as kinesiologists, and we recognize that out of all of the different muscle meridians that we have in our toolbox, the muscles connected into the stomach, it's that there are loads of muscles
There's
in the stomach.
most of them. Yeah. So
It's
digestion
all
is
through the wrists, all through the arms, and all through the chest, and there's some in the back as well, and through the neck. And so what can be really interesting from a structural perspective, if you see someone who's had gastric band surgery, they often have a very, very poor structure, as all of these muscles that are connected into the stomach stop working. So you'll see someone, and also that, you know, the stomach is so compromised that they almost have this hunched over, and you get very bad back and bad shoulders from being hunched over all the time when your muscles aren't working. And so then you've got this knock-on effect that you're then in pain, you've got back pain, you've got neck pain, you've got arm pain, which then stops you being active. So then you've also got, there's just such a knock-on effect.
You know, this is one of the areas that I really enjoy being controversial around, because I have looked and looked for research that corroborates particularly gastric band surgery, and I cannot find anything compelling. And it's just such primary school science. Actually, it's primary school science, and I absolutely am ready to have the debate with bariatric surgeons, because it just doesn't make sense when you start to look at all the other things we're going to talk to you about.